Welcome to Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard. Well, you know.
That's not a
Let's get to February 2001. We're at the No Way Out pay-per-view, and Jerry is going to wrestle Steven Richards from the Right to Censor. And Steven gets the win in 5 minutes and 31 seconds. And the steps were, if Lawler wins, Cat would strip. But if Richards won, Cat has to join the RTC. And they didn't have a little end for nudity on the parental warning. So I guess that tells you ahead of time that we're not going to see any naughty bits. In the end though, you know the deal. Steven Richards gets the win. RTC puts Cat in a burlap sack and take her away. 1.5 stars. It is sort of weird that the stip is, if I win, my wife gets to get naked.
Yeah, but she wasn't portrayed as his wife.
Yeah. It's just weird though. Let's talk about why we're really here though. This is probably the storyline or the bit of news that most people want to hear about. Stacy the Cat Carter is suddenly fired, and Jerry immediately quit in protest. Meltzer would write, very sketchy details at press time other than Stacy Carter was released on February 27th, which was strange being that it was right in the middle of an angle they were doing with her being kidnapped. And upon hearing that news, Lawler quit the company in protest. According to the reports, Lawler was at the production meeting going over the show until 2 p.m., then left. When he came back at 4 p.m., Ross told him they had to release Carter. Lawler said he told Ross and McMahon that if she is let go, then he would quit. They didn't change their decision, and he left. Lawler said to his webmaster that there was no incident or provocation of any kind that led up to this, and that both he and Carter have no idea why this happened. They denied there was any refusal by Carter to do something with the current angle. And there were other reports that Lawler had pressured or convinced McMahon to give Carter an angle, as she had, for all real purposes, been off TV for some time, and he acquiesced at first. This becomes a very intriguing story because Lawler is tied to so many facets of the business, including being a color man of every major show, Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, and the XFL, as well as being a key part of the developmental territory in Memphis. If this was another point in history, it would be one thing, because a talent like Lawler could go to another territory while things simmered down, but he really has no alternative to make any real money in this business and then come back at some point. Because Taz was in New York while all this went down, it forced him to have Ross do color with Cole for SmackDown. It's believed that Taz will get the color spot on all the shows, which is an enormous amount of pressure on him at this point because he's been a lot better in small portions at the pay-per-view so far. We'll talk about, Jerry's side of things and his perspective,
and then we'll tell the truth.
Well, okay. We'll do that then. We'll do that first.
No, go ahead. I want to hear, let's go through his version of it. And I'll tell you what happened.
Jerry wrote, JR said, telling me this is one of the hardest things he's ever had to do. And he said he didn't know how to tell Stacy. And that's when JR asked me if I could tell her. And I thought, this is one hell of a no. They're firing my wife and they want me to tell her she's fired. So that's when I told JR, yeah, I'll tell her we're on our way back to Memphis because if she's fired, I'm leaving too. When I knocked on the door to the ladies' locker room, I don't even remember which diva answered, but I asked for Stacy, and in a moment she was peeking around the corner, just half dressed. As far as she knew, she was on in a couple hours away from one of her biggest roles to date on SmackDown. She was getting ready early. I think she could tell on my face that something was wrong. I just said, baby, get dressed to get your things. We're leaving. She looked at me like I was kidding and said, why, what's wrong? I believe she thought I had some sort of death in the family or there was some kind of emergency or something. Tell me what's wrong. Why are we leaving? I just said, JR told me that Vince is giving you your release. So I told him I'm leaving too. So get your things and let's go. And she stunned and looked at me and said, why? When she gathered her things together, we took them out along with my bag, threw them in the rental car. We got in the car and I started it off, and then I turned the engine off and I said, let's go talk to Vince. We walked back into the arena and up to Vince's office. It was a very small office that day. And at each show, it's a different room chosen to be Vince's office. And usually they're pretty nice and spacious, but this one was not much bigger than a broom closet. When I looked in, Vince was sitting there eating that protein bar, talking on the phone. And I said, Vince, can we talk to you for a second? He motioned for us to come in and sit down while he finished his phone call. The room was so small that when I sat down, my knee was actually touching Vince's. I was pretty sure that whoever he was talking to on the phone was informing him that I was leaving along with Stacy. When he got off the phone, Stacy asked Vince what she had done so bad for being fired for it. And that's when the mystery began. Vince said he didn't really know what she had done. It was a talent relations issue. Well, JR is the head of talent relations, and he had just sworn to me he had no idea of the reason for Stacy's firing. So I said to Vince, Jim Ross said someone was unhappy with her attitude. If that's the case, shouldn't someone have come to us and said, Stacy, there's a problem. We need to talk to you and get straightened out. Vince said, yes, someone should have come to Stacy and talked to her about that. And I pointed out that no one did. No one said anything to either of us about any kind of problem. Well, they should have, Vince said. And that's when I knew Stacy's attitude wasn't the real reason she was being fired. Stacy and Chyna had been really close friends up until Chyna got featured in Playboy magazine. And then for one reason or another, they drifted apart. And I wondered if Chyna had been upset with the sudden push that Kat was getting with the right to censor angle. We both thought that could have been the reason Stacy was fired. One of the people from the office who was instrumental in getting Chyna hooked up with Playboy had asked Stacy if she would be interested in posing for the magazine. When Stacy said she would, the person set up a meeting with Hugh Hefner. Stacy and I went to the Playboy mansion and met Hef. We spent a few minutes with him, and he said to Stacy, we have a great relationship with the WWE, and as far as I'm concerned, you'd be perfect to be the next diva in our magazine. Stacy was really excited, but somehow word got back to the company that Stacy and I had gone out there on our own and met with Hefner behind their back. Like I know Hugh Hefner, I could just call him up and say, Hef, this is King. I want you to put Stacy in Playboy. We never really got the misunderstanding straightened out, and Stacy and I thought that may have been the reason she was fired. Another item going around was that she was fired because there was a photograph of her kissing Chyna, like some sort of lesbian pictures or something. The truth is there was a picture on the internet of Stacy and Chyna with their faces close together and their lips puckered. The picture was taken by me and had actually only been on my website for more than a year, and they were mugging for the camera, not kissing. I really had no idea what had gone wrong. I wrote a heartfelt letter to Vince and said I wish the whole thing hadn't happened, but at no point did I beg for my job back. Anyway, I didn't hear a word back from Vince. For a long time, I didn't hear anything from anyone. The communication was through lawyers, and it was an ugly situation. All right. Now, you were there. What really happened?
Tucson, Arizona. We had gotten out of the meeting, and it came up with Stacy had gone to some of the writers and was complaining and kvetching about whatever they had to do that night. And it was a constant battle that, everything was a debate. And they came in and said, we just want to end it because it's difficult. And they were like, done at that point. Jim was in talent relations. I think I was still in talent relations at that point too. So he says, hey, I need you to come with me. And Jim told me, what was going on. I says, we got to let Stacy go. And I don't think it's going to be good because I don't know how King's going to react. And out of respect to King, he says, I want to do it. And I want to do it face to face. I need a witness. I hope he doesn't quit. So we went upstairs to JR's office, and we sat in the little dressing room there, and JR said, King, got some bad news. And he says, we are not going to be continuing on with Stacy, and we got to let her go. And I'm coming to you first out of respect. We're friends. And this is a difficult situation. I don't want to do this. It's tough, but in business, sometimes you got to make tough decisions. And as a friend, I'm letting you know if how you would like to handle it. And Jerry said, I've got a contract sitting on my desk at home for $300,000 or $500,000, whatever it was, from WCW that I could start tomorrow night if I wanted to. I says, well, I don't know if you can or not, based on your contract here, but I wish that you wouldn't do this. He goes, I don't know what to say. I understand that's your wife. And JR was very, empathetic and trying to, it's an awkward situation. It's a shitty situation, no matter how you look at it. So, Jerry says, well, if she goes, I go. And JR said something about, I feel like Martin and Lewis and name somebody else that I don't want to break up the team. I don't want to break you and I up. And, Jerry again reiterated he could start at WCW tomorrow. He's got an offer from them and he doesn't need this place and it's for more money. And Jim tried to talk him down, and he says, well, if that's it, then we're out of here. And Jerry got up and left. So, still no one had told Stacy yet. So I guess that's when Jerry went and told Stacy. And then they went to Vince's office and tried to talk to Vince, and Vince was in the middle of whatever he was doing. I have no idea what transpired at that meeting. I wasn't in there for that one. From there, Jerry went out to talk to Kevin Dunn in the truck. And Kevin, I think Kevin knew what was going to happen, but he didn't know Jerry had quit and was kind of confused. And so it all happened really fast, but it was a shitty situation that it was really difficult for JR. And I think with me sitting there, I think Jerry felt, well, I was somehow responsible for it, which I had been told moments before that by JR. So I had no idea until we got in there. Now, I do know that, there was frustration with Stacy for some time with the creative team, and that they felt that, a lot of pushback on things. And think the impression was that she had gotten a little big for her britches and gotten the big head. But again, that was outside and after the fact and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was the first thing he said was, yeah, I can go to WCW tomorrow. I've got a big contract. And JR was like, I really hope that's not what you do. I don't want you to quit. Let's stay and work this thing out. Time heals everything, and just chill. And he was gone. He left.
State clearly for the record again. Why was Stacy fired?
I think it was just kind of pushback on everything. It was an accumulation of everything they brought to her creatively, that it was always an argument. And whatever had happened that day, and I still was never really clear on it, but whatever had happened that day, it was like, then you know what? If she doesn't want to do it, then move on. We got to go. Don't have time for this. And JR had come and gotten me and said, hey, I need you to witness this. And he buzzed me right before we went in the room and got King. So that was it. It was more of it was an attitude deal.
What were the rumors and innuendo surrounding her? Wrestling breeds a lot of paranoia and also breeds a lot of rumors and, shit talk. Everybody buries everybody, lots of negativity. It's not popular. It's not fun, but it is the reality that it exists sometimes. And, this was an interesting time for the business where it's not quite as PC as it is now. It's a little more Wild West. Were there rumors or whispers about the cat one way or another?
There may have been, but I hate to repeat rumors and innuendo, because that's all it is rumors and innuendo. Unless you witness something yourself, that's not fair. That's not fair to anybody that can't defend themselves.
I'm not asking you to repeat it. I just wanted to ask if you heard it.
You hear shit all the time, but again, you hear shit about you and me all the time. So,
oh no, I'm not arguing that at all.
But from the business standpoint of it, that had nothing to do with it. It was more of an issue of just the antagonistic back and forth with creative at the time. And I can't even tell you, going back at that time, I don't even remember who the hell was even on creative at the time. So, that's it. I mean, it's that comes down to that simple, and it's tough because her husband works there and he's an integral part of the show. Plus he's a friend. So he's somebody that's been a part of it the whole time. So it sucks. It's a very difficult situation to be in.
Lawler would write in his book that, people would say that he overreacted to the firing of Stacy, but he said he can't believe anybody would think that a job was more important to a husband than his wife, and he didn't regret it. And his website was getting 60,000 hits a day because people were so fascinated with the story. And at the end of it, at around 5:30 on February 27th, 2001, just less than a month before WCW goes under, at that Tuesday in Tucson, Vince stands up with a protein bar in his left hand, extends his right hand, and says, "Well, King, I want to thank you for everything you've done for us. You've gone above and beyond the call of duty and really helped us tremendously. Goodbye." And with that, his 9-year run with the World Wrestling Federation came to an end. And he wrote in his book, he thought it was some sort of joke or prank or rib, but he didn't detect any humor in Vince's eyes or compassion. Quote, "All I saw was the straight ahead corporate stare of a company head who just made another business decision. One of hundreds of decisions Vince is called upon to make every day as the owner. And this decision hit him like a ton of bricks. It meant that they didn't want to be associated with him or his wife anymore. Their services were no longer needed." And he says he guesses he wasn't mad at Vince. He didn't want to punch him or anything. He was just hurt and disappointed. And just a week earlier, Vince had walked to him and said, "King, I know you're going to love the segment I'm doing on the show with Trish Stratus tonight because you and I are cut from the same cloth." And he remembered feeling proud when Vince said that they thought alike, they had a lot in common, and he thought they did too. And he even wrote in the book that he had the honor of making Vince McMahon's first blade, the specially adapted razor blade that Vince used to cut his forehead and bleed on TV for the first time. But now all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it's like they had nothing in common again. It's a weird story, man. And I think a lot of people probably wonder why Vince didn't make a different decision in that moment. Did you have a conversation with him about it?
No, but the thing is you're doing television, you're working, you own a business. Guy quits. Okay. We pleaded with him not to and tried to make it work. Now, yes, we were letting his wife go. And I understand from a husband-wife thing. I understand that too. From Vince's point of view, it's a business, and I've got television to produce now. I'm very sorry that you've made this decision to quit. That's a bad one to make because it's hard to come back from that. That's one thing to say it to us, and we're trying to talk you out of it. When you go to him with it, it's kind of over at that point. If you'd gone and said, "You know what? I don't understand what's going on here. I'm not sure I can work tonight. I'd like to take the night off and give this some thought." That's different than saying, "I'm out, I quit." Emotions, I get both sides of it. Vince is, man, he's business next, moving on. And somebody comes in to your office and say, "Conrad, I quit." I really wish you wouldn't do that. I'd hope you'd reconsider. "Nope, I quit. I'm out of here. I've got a better offer down the street at XYZ Mortgage.
See you later."
Are you gonna get up and shake their hand and say bye, or are you gonna get down on your hands and knees when you've got a closing in 30 minutes?
No, listen, you got it right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it does feel like they could have had a conversation about a cat and say, "You know what? Let's just suspend her, send her home for 2 weeks. We'll figure it out. Get your ass out there and call the show." But I guess when you start waving your dick around saying, "I'm going to WCW," now it feels like, well,
you've already thought about this. You've got a deal. You didn't tell us about it. Now you're quitting. Okay. Good luck to you.
Yeah. I mean, there's another little thing in here where JR and Lawler are having a conversation before he goes to Vince. And he says, "You know, if the shoe was on the other foot and you work for a company that fired Jan for no reason, would you stay?" And JR responded, "Probably not." So Lawler says, "Well, I'm not either. And you know me well enough to know I'd react this way. And so does Vince. So I can only figure you guys want me to leave as well."